So today we have one of the best experts and my team joining us. So in lieu of our session about best practices for interviewing and resume writing, we're very excited to have Yolanda Richards from Unicef USA join us. So Yolanda has worked over 20 years with human resources, and she currently works as the Deputy Director of Recruitment for Unicef USA. So she definitely has a lot of experience. I mean, if any of you guys ever want to work for Unicef USA, you literally have to go through her. So she's very experienced, and we're very excited to have her today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. And so I chuckled because, yes, mostly everyone comes through me if they're interviewing at Unicef USA. So thank you for having me. I'm excited as well. I've been at Unicef USA for a little over 5 years now, approaching 5.5 years. So still super excited about being here. You saw my bio, so you know that this is my second job in international development. Prior to here, I was at the International Rescue Committee where I recruited. My main focus was international recruitment. And so here at Unicef USA, my main focus is overseeing domestic recruitment, so only here in the U.S., okay? So to get started, you know, this presentation, it's a long slide presentation, and I don't want to read through every single thing, but because I do want to open it up for questions and be available for you. So I'll try my best to get through everything, but or, you know, quickly go through it. But this is about how to write a winning resume, and I tailored it for entry-level, early career professionals, and also steps to acing the interview, okay? Let's see, next slide. Yes, thank you. So we'll start with writing a winning resume. So you guys should know your resume is your marketing brochure. It identifies what you have to offer, who you are, what you've done, when and where you did it, how you succeeded at it, and it explains, you know, what contributions you can make to an organization. These are all the things that I immediately want to see when I'm scanning through resumes, okay? It's, you know, your resume is used in the interview process. It's used by the recruiter, it's used by the hiring manager. So if you hear that term hiring manager, that's the person who the position usually reports into. Hiring team, that means it's the interview team. So it could be people in that department or the hiring manager's supervisor, but most of the interviews usually start with me, the recruiter, okay? So the resume is key, because if I don't see a good resume, I'm not going to review it. Or maybe I have 3 piles. I have a yes pile, I have a no pile. No, I have a yes pile, yeah, I have a yes pile, I have a no pile, and I have a maybe pile. And you want your resume to be in my yes pile, okay? Next. Who's driving this? So I'm going to quickly go through formats. You guys know, or you've seen different resume formats. My preference and most employer preferred resume format is the chronological format. It's easy to read, it presents education and work experience in reverse chronological order, and it just really allows the reader to capture career growth and achievements. Okay, next. So the other resume format, and you know, this format is not, it's not bad, but again, the chronological format is the preferred. So the functional format is when, let's say, someone doesn't have a lot of experience, whether it's a lot of internships or part-time work, and so what they'll do is list their functional skills on the resume to highlight what they've done, what they can do, instead of the experience, or the experience might be listed at the bottom, but more of the functional skills are highlighted at the top of the resume. Okay, next. Another format is a combination, where some people will list, you'll see some resumes where it's both. You have chronological and the functional format. And it just really stresses, again, skills and abilities. And it provides job experience and descriptions. So my preference is not to see your job description on your resume. I want to know what your highlights, what your accomplishments have been or are. Those are the things that I want to see. I want you to come in when we interview, tell me about your job, and then you can highlight your job description for me as well as your accomplishments. Okay, next. So again, this is basic headings, your name, address. In this day and age of security, people having access to your private information, it's not necessary to have your address on it. If you have your cell phone, your email, that's okay. When I forward resumes through internally, I try not to. It's hard not to do. It's hard. It gets a little hard doing this. I try to take your personal contact information off because, the whole team doesn't need to know where you live, okay? But I would say make sure you have a number. Make sure your voicemail is professional. You'll be surprised. I've heard quite a few things on voicemail. It really needs to be professional, and your email should be professional as well. And I haven't, experienced a lot of unprofessional emails, but I have, and I would say a Gmail email account is probably preferred because all the others seem to go there. Sometimes it goes into spam, and you don't want to miss when a recruiter is contacting you. Okay, next. So summary of skills I listed, and this is for some, for professionals who probably have a little bit more experience. But I listed this for you guys because I think it's important for you to know that how resumes are being written now. So a summary is at the top. It highlights, it's either bulleted or in columns, and it just really highlights your unique skills and abilities. It's really your marketing message. It's a clear marketing message. It tells me immediately when I see your resume that, let's say, if you're interested in marketing and communications, that you that's the field that you're interested in, or if you've done internships or if you've already done some work in that area, it tells me that you're a marketing and communications professional immediately, and it will probably go into my yes pile. Okay, next. And so here are some examples, because Unicef USA, a lot of what we do is fundraise to support Unicef programs around the world. I thought that a good example would be a fundraising professional. So at the top of the resume, this would be listed as an example: experienced fundraising professional who values integrity and professionalism and boasts relationship building, leadership, and strategic vision skills. Okay, I think there are a few more examples as well. So a couple of more examples, and you can do it. Remember, I mentioned different, in bullets. So here's bullet style: goal-driven communications management professional. Maybe you're not quite at the management level yet, so you can say communications professional. Or you're looking for an entry-level position, and then highlight some of the things that you've done. And that can be in high school, it could be in college, or if you've already started to work, what you're currently doing, okay? Proven track record as an editor, media relations, you can put PR, public relations, and then I put experience in writing and editing, and then to highlight some of the things. And project management is another good summary skill to highlight at the top of your resume, okay? I think there's probably one more. Education. So there's a debate about education being listed on the top of the resume versus the bottom. For, I would say, early career professionals, my preference as a recruiter, and I've been doing this for 20 years, is to see it at the top, okay? Listed at the top. That's my preference. It doesn't mean that you can list it at the bottom, but my preference is at the top. High school diploma is not necessary, but I completely understand when I see it. And there are some schools where, or if you were have a high ranking in your high school and you want to list it, that's definitely an accomplishment, but it's not necessary, okay? Same thing with GPA. Great to see, especially if you've worked really hard and it's high, list it. It's okay, okay? Next. So experience, and again, I'm pretty sure these are things that you know, but I want to see the job title, the employer, organization, the city, the state, and dates of employment, okay? Again, list jobs in chronological order, and use accomplishment statements. That goes back to when I mentioned my preference is not to see your job description listed on your resume. I want to know what you did or what you've done really well. And if you're currently working, if you're in an internship or if you're in a leadership position in high school or college, ask who's supervising you, what you're doing well. Start there. And another thing that's important, start with an action verb. I listed a couple. Those are the words that I want to see at the beginning of the bullet, okay? Improved, enhanced, increased, created, initiated, developed. If you're at the stage where you haven't quite done that yet, improve processes. If you're assisting in developing new policies and procedures or assisting in a department, you can put that, but put assisted in the development of XYZ, and I believe there could be an example of that as well. Next. Here's an example of an accomplishment statement versus an actual job description, responsible for XYZ. But if you're putting actively persuaded high school students applying for a national award program, increasing amount of signups by 20% from the previous year. So recruiters, we love to see metrics, okay, just as a hint. So let's say if you are overseeing volunteers, I want to know how many volunteers did you manage, how many did you recruit, how many events, okay, so keep that in mind. Next. And here's another, going back to assisted in developing something on a team. If you haven't quite done, developed proposals, written proposals, but you helped in that process, list it, okay? Next. And so here are just some, to add impact to your resume, to give you some ideas of things that you could also include. So if you've been promoted, list that. Receive promotion in a short span of 6 months. If it's a year, say within a year. If you've been promoted to lead a project, list that. And if it's within a short time frame, list that as well. Again, going back to recruiting and supervising, if you're working with volunteers, you can list that. And then I put compelling outreach initiatives. Okay, next. So, and here's some other, you can create special sections. Unicef USA, a lot of, applicants are interested in our work, and so if you have international experience, if you've been abroad, if you volunteered, list it. If you're, list your experience as leaders with UNICEF clubs. All those things are relevant and will help you in your search, okay? Next. A Again, optional categories, honors, awards, interests, hobbies. I listed hobbies, you know, for people who love to travel. So for our work, if you love to travel, if you've traveled to many countries, I think that's worth, you know, noting on your resume for our work. We want to know that you've been to countries around the world, developing countries, and so maybe you haven't seen the actual programs on the ground, but you've been to countries where you know that there's need, and so that's all very helpful and things that I'm looking for. Okay, next. I know we're running out of time. So again, for you guys, a one-page resume is all I need to see. Please don't submit two-page resumes. One-pagers, okay, next. Okay, so I want to talk about the interview process because I know we're running short on time. There are a couple of other tips for resume writing, but if you have those questions, I'll circle back, okay? So steps for interview success. Always prepare for the interview, okay? Always make a positive first impression. There's a saying, you never have a second chance to make a first impression, so this is key. Demonstrate your potential. Ask key interview questions with ease and confidence. Recruiters will always, at the end of an interview, ask you if you have questions. Do not say no. And we love to talk, and we might very well answer all the questions that you have prepared, but you should have another unique question. And that could very well be asking the recruiter, well, I would love to hear how you got to Unicef USA, you know, if you get stuck on questions, okay? But you should always ask at least 1 to 2 questions, all right? My preference is to hear 2 to 3, all right? Next. Again, going back to keys to interview success, positive impression, communicate your skills. You want to answer problem questions well. I'll talk about that in a bit. And you want to ask the interview appropriate questions, which I just touched on. You want to, you know, what you want to do is show me or show recruiters why we should hire you. Okay, so always keep that in mind. You want to close the interview properly. I listed that because you want to tell the recruiter, you know, if this is a job that you want to make it clear that you look forward to hearing back from us. You're extremely interested in the job. You want me to know, or any recruiter to know, that you want the job, okay? And so follow up after the interview. Thank you notes are always recommended. The culture here at Unicef USA is thank you notes. Hiring managers are always asking, well, did they send a thank you note? That's our culture, so I would strongly recommend a thank you note for everyone who's interviewed you, and it should not be the same thing. So making notes, taking notes, or not, well, you can take notes during the interview, but after the interview, if you're not comfortable taking notes during the interview, but after the interview, jot down a couple of things that you immediately remember. So when you're writing your thank you notes, you can reference some of the things that you talked about in that interview, in your interview. Okay? Next. So again, preparing for the interview. Research the industry. I will tell you 2 questions that I always ask everyone is, why do you want to work at Unicef USA? Why this position? Why us? We want to know about your motivation and your interests. We are a mission-driven organization, as you know, and so that's extremely important. So you have to do your homework, okay? Research the careers that interest you. Research the organization. Research the job itself. And research the interviewer. I have to tell you that I appreciate when candidates will tell me that they looked at my LinkedIn page and they'll ask me a question from it. And so it helps, okay? Next. So important questions to answer in your research. So you want to know what the employer, who is the employer and what it does. You want to know who the main competition is. So for us, it's other NGOs, right? I won't say who they are. You know who they are. You want to know what we've accomplished in the last 3 years. You can do that. You can go to our website. It's there. These are all questions that recruiters might very well ask. Well, what can you tell me about Unicef USA? Okay, depending on what department it is. Let's say if you're interested in corporate partnerships, I'll say, what can you tell me about some of our corporate partners? All right. What skills and training does the job require? Again, you will, I think I skipped one. What is the job description? That's what we post. That's what you see. And then you want to ask yourself, how can you contribute to the organization? And these are all questions that you should be able to answer and answer in an interview. Okay? Next. Again, going back to making a good impression, please show up on time. Things happen. I always try to leave my contact information for candidates, or someone on my team will share their contact information. But I have to tell you, if your interview is scheduled for 9 o'clock, in your head, you should probably prepare. You should say, oh, my interview is at 8. Sit in a Starbucks. Wait, don't come in, I would say 5 minutes before the interview. 15, 20 minutes, that's appropriate, but you want to be in the location. Being very late is not a good thing, and I have turned people away because, one, if you haven't called me to explain why you're being late and you're 30 minutes late, that just it messes up my day because I'm interviewing all day long, okay? You want to make sure your appearance, you're always professional. Yes, we're a nonprofit, and even if you see that the person that is interviewing you, or if you have a relationship with them, they dress casual, you should still come prepared for an interview, okay? Always dress professionally. You want to pay attention to your voice and your habits. Always give a firm handshake. Use the interviewer's name. I listed make small talk. So when you're meeting the interviewer, how was your day? I usually will start it with, did you find us okay? How was your morning? Would you like some coffee? Would you like some water? And so if I'm doing that, then I would love for the candidate to also make small talk back. And it says a lot about who you are, about your communication skills, your interpersonal skills, all things that we're looking for, okay? Next. And so this is, I listed this as a 3-step process for answering interview questions. So you really want to understand what is really being asked, okay? You want to answer questions briefly in a non-damaging way. So again, go back to listening to your tone, your body language. You want to answer the real question by presenting your related skills. It should all be job related. So keep in mind what we want, employers want. We want good communication skills. We want to know that you can problem solve, you're creative, you're confident, you're motivated, you take initiative, great interpersonal skills, and you're a team player. So keep that in mind. Okay, next. So job-related skills. So I'm going to ask questions I mentioned about your motivation and your interests, but I'm also going to ask questions where I want you to tell me the skills that you have that are related to the job that you're interviewing for, okay? So you want to present concrete examples of what you've done. You want to quantify your achievements. Again, going back to some of those examples that I listed early on. You want to emphasize your results, and you want to link your experience to the job. Okay, next. And so here are some frequently asked questions, interview questions. So what I will tell you is that you want to anticipate and prepare for typical questions with strong personal answers. So you see, these questions tell me about yourself. I want to hear, you know, if you're a recent college graduate, yes, it's great to lead with that, but also tell me what it is about your experience that makes you the best candidate for the job, okay? One question that, you know, the weakness question, I usually do not present it that way. I will say, ask, you know, in which areas can you continue to improve, okay? There are other ways that we'll ask. Maybe it's, you know, what are some things that your current supervisor would say that you need to improve on, okay? But here are some questions. I'm not going to go through all these questions. You've probably seen some of them, most of them, but these are questions that I tend to ask at all levels, okay? I will dig a little deeper for some, for more senior level positions, but these are the questions that I focus on, okay? Next. So I listed this here because I think it's important for you guys to know that there are a couple of laws that protect you from discrimination. So Title VII of the Civil Rights Act makes discrimination on the basis of race, gender, religion, or national origin illegal in hiring decisions, so always know that. And the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that an employer provide an equal opportunity for an individual with a disability to be considered for a job, okay? Next. So some final tips. Really know yourself. Don't let your nerves take over. Yes, interviews are stressful, and my style is very conversational. When I see that a candidate is nervous, but not everyone has my style, so you have to be prepared for other styles, I will try to make them at ease because I feel that if you are nervous, you're not going to sell yourself the best way possible. But you should be able to really tell me about who you are, what you've accomplished. Again, know the employer, know the organization that you are interested in. Turn those negatives, going back to weaknesses, into positives. Don't say, like, if tardiness is an issue, don't say, well, I need to work on not being late to work. Maybe say, I learned from my supervisor addressed it. Maybe once or twice, I learned from it, and now I know the importance of being at work before 9 o'clock, because 9 o'clock is when I'm supposed to start, but being at work before 9 o'clock allows me to start at 9 o'clock. You know, so you want to turn negatives into positives. Don't forget to follow up. Again, going back to those thank you notes. Use a formal salutation. Don't get too comfortable with hi, you know, so-and-so, or hi, Yolanda. Just be formal. It's always safe. Dear Yolanda, or Dear Miss Richards. And remember, no matter what questions interviewers ask, the underlying question is always, why should we hire you? So that's what I, you know, want you guys to work on and practice, and it does. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell you if not that I'm going anywhere because I love what I do, but if I were to interview, I would practice. If I had an interview, I would practice. Practice, 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 okay? I think I went a little over, but this is it.